Well, hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
All right.
Again.
Hi. So we're going to try to make an app. I'm just going to end up sharing my screen, and I'm going to go ahead and try to make the app. Okay. So this is App Inventor. So you girls have used Thunkable in the past. This is very similar to Thunkable, but it will be a little bit different. All right. So we're in the designer, and the idea for this app was a motivation app to motivate people to kind of change their behavior. So the idea would be to put up a challenge, and eventually make this into like a daily challenge or a 10-day challenge, where you'd get a challenge for the day to do something that kind of pushes you out of your comfort zone, and then you can either choose to accept it or not. So let's put up a daily challenge with some text and a picture to go with it. And then the user would either say swipe right to accept, swipe left to say no, I don't want to do it. Yeah. Over here we're gonna grab say a label, and I'm actually going to drag out two labels. So one might be just the general instructions as kind of what's going on, and then the second one will be for the challenge. So I want to rename them to align with what they are going to do as far as functions. Because I've got these two labels, I just want to give them good names, so when I get over to the blocks part of it, I can remember what's this label and what's the other label. So I'm just going to say the top label will be my instruction label, and then my second one will be my challenge. Okay, so I've renamed those two.
I have a question really quick. Do you have to rename your labels and stuff and all of your components, or is it just easier to do?
Yeah, you don't have to. Certainly you can leave them as is, what the default is that App Inventor gives you. For small apps, that's fine when you only have a few components. If you start to get a complicated app with a lot of different things going on, you go to the blocks editor and you say, oh, what was that label for again? And what's label 2, what's label 3? Yeah. So I always find that's my first thing, is I just go rename things so that I know once I start coding, I don't have to refer back.
Okay.
But that's a very good question. So what I'm going to do is change the top label to give some sort of instructions. So something like, welcome to your daily motivation challenge. Swipe right to accept the challenge, left to, let's say, skip for today. So over here is I've got my phone showing. So let's just go and connect to the companion. You scan the code. Let's change the width on this to fill the parent. And then I'm going to change the alignment on this to center. It centers it. I might change the color to blue. So it automatically updates on my phone. So that's what you're seeing.
So does App Inventor have an app where you can only live test it on phone, or can you also live test it on the computer?
Good question. So under Connect, we have the companion, which is on your phone or tablet, the emulator, which will run on your computer, and then also USB is another way if I connect my phone or my tablet. So the nice thing about the emulator is you don't need a phone or a tablet, and but you don't have necessarily all of the features of a phone. So things like if you wanted to use the accelerometer sensor to be able to tilt your phone or anything like that. Sometimes the camera. So it depends on what kind of an app you're building, but generally you can test using the emulator. Okay. And it will just pop up as another window in your browser. In order to be able to swipe with an app, we have to use the canvas component. So that's under drawing and animation. So I'm going to drag over and I'm going to put it down here below the two labels. And it's really small right now. So what I want to do is I want to fill parent for height and fill parent for width. And then what that does is it will fill the screen. So anything inside the screen is considered its parent. What we're going to end up doing is putting a picture to go along with the challenge of the day. Okay, so what we've decided is this is our initial screen. We're going to show an image and a challenge, and then the user's going to go left or right, depending on which, if they want to say yes or no. And we, however, want that information to be passed to the other screen. The other thing we want to keep track of is how many challenges have they accepted. So as each day goes on, the idea is you log into your app and you'll get a new challenge. And so we want to keep track of how many challenges they've said yes to. Okay, so what we're going to use is, if we go to under storage here, we've got a bunch of different storage options. So CloudDB lets you save things to the cloud. So like that's, up in the cloud and sharing data between people. We're going to go down to this tinyDB. So tinyDB stands for Tiny Database, and that's allowing you to store information on your phone or tablet. So because this is a personal app and it's personal challenges and personal motivation for you, we really want to just, be saving that information for ourselves. All right, so I'm going to drag this over, and we get tinyDB. Notice that it pops up way down the bottom as a non-visible component. So you can't see it in the app, but it's still going to be an important part of our app.
So we use Airtable. Is that like similar to it?
That's similar to CloudDB.
Oh,
so
okay.
Airtable writes in the AR and the cloud, and that it is a way, but it's also a way to share between users. Mm-hmm. Eventually we could do this. Like eventually we'd say, oh, let's have a leaderboard, and you can, check your friends and see how many challenges they've accepted, and it could be motivational this way. But let's start off
that's what
personal and move to the cloud later. Okay, so we're going to now go over to the blocks editor. What we want to happen is you open up the app, and we want to put up the challenge. So what I want to do is go to screen 1, and there's this block called when screen 1 initialize. So that basically says when I open this screen, or when I open, in this case, the app. If we did a 10-day challenge, we'd want 10 different challenges that we could put up there, right? But let's start off with 1 and get it working and make sure that it works. So what I want to do is, and this is where the fact that I've labeled my labels as instruction and challenge, I know that the challenge label is the one that I want to set. So I'm going to click on challenge label, and I want to do set challenge label.text.
Would there be a way to, like, when you complete the challenge, you get points that get saved into the database?
Yes, that would be another thing that we'd want to save to tinyDB thing. So let's actually do that. So I'm going to make a variable. So under variables, so I'm going to name the variable, let's say challenge points, and I'm going to initialize it to 0. But let's first see if we can get the challenge to be displayed. So I'm just going to say learn to draw is going to be my challenge for the day. And then I want to have a picture to go with it. So I'm going to go to media over here and upload file, choose a file. And so I've got some pictures. So I've got a drawing picture here. So so I've uploaded the drawing picture. So then what I want to do is put that picture as the background on my canvas. So what I want to do is go down here and say set canvas background image 2. And then with this, also under text, I'm going to grab a blank text block, and I'm going to type in, I want to type in exactly the name of my file, which is drawing.jpg. All right, so let's see if we can get that to show up. Up under connect, I can say refresh companion screen. So there we go. So welcome to your daily motivation challenge. Swipe right to accept, swipe left to skip for today. All right, so we've got a picture showing up, and we've got our challenge showing up. Now what we want the user to do is swipe right to accept and left to skip. So they're going to swipe on the canvas. So we've got this thing called canvas flung, and it's got a lot of inputs to it. So it's got an X and a Y. So the idea is that this is like a grid, and the horizontal is X and the vertical is Y. So if you think about this upper corner as X is 0 and Y is 0, and then X gets bigger over to the right, and then down the bottom here, your Y gets bigger. So when I fling, the X and Y is where I put my finger. So it needs to know the point. With a fling, it also gives you a lot of other information. The speed of your fling, so how fast are you flinging your finger on the screen. The heading is the direction. So what direction am I going? And the ones that we're going to look at is the X and the Y velocity. We want to basically know, are they going right or left? So because X is horizontal, so the idea is that if I go to the right, it's going to be a positive number. And if I go left, it's going to be a negative number. So I'm going to bring out an if statement. So that's from our control blocks. And then from math, I'm going to pull out this block that says equal right now, but we're going to change the equal to a greater than. And I want to check the X velocity. So I'm just checking which way is the finger going horizontally. So if it's greater than 0, that means that I'm saying yes, right? So I'm going to go to the right. And then I want to copy this. So I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm going to change this to less than 0. So I want to be able to capture both cases. Am I going to the left or to the right? And then what I want to do is I'm going to go to a second screen and pass that information to the second screen. So what I'm going to do is go up here and I'm going to say add a screen. Let's call this the challenge screen. And so what we want to do here is we want to either congratulate them, yay, thanks for accepting the challenge, and probably take them to a website where they can do the challenge. Or what we want to do is probably say, too bad you didn't accept today's challenge. Maybe we can try again tomorrow. One idea we had was to send them to a website where they could donate money. Right? So you say, okay, if you don't accept the challenge, your kind of penalty is donate money to this good cause. So what we're going to do is on this, let's do a label. Below it, we're going to go to a website. So we're either going to go to the website to do the challenge, or we're going to go to some sort of website where they can donate money. So we're at the second screen, but let's go back to screen 1. What we want to do is a couple of things. We want to open the other screen, but we also want to pass the information. Did they say yes or no? And then what's the website we want them to go to? All right, so this is where we're going to use tinyDB. You can either get a value, so get whatever the current value is of something, or store it. So in this case, we want to store the value. When you store a value, you give it a tag. That's like naming it, and then whatever value you want to store. So just like up here with our variables challenge points, that's almost like a tag, right? That's the name we give to our variable, and then 0 is the value. So the same thing here. So what we want to do is, let's do two things. Let's first add 1 to our challenge points. So I'm going to say take challenge points, and we want to add 1 to it. So from math, we're going to add, and then we need to get the challenge points, and we're going to add a 1 to it. Okay, and then we want to take that information, store it into tinyDB. So I'm going to, the tag, I'm just going to use the same as I did for the variable. So challenge points. And because tinyDB actually works for all of your apps that you're creating, I just want to make sure that if I happen to have another app that had challenge points, that it's for this app. So I'm going to call this motivation challenge points. And the value that I'm going to store is my variable global challenge point. So I've added 1 to it, and I'm going to store it. The other thing I want to do is I want to store the website I want them to go to. So I'm going to duplicate this. And let's call this motivation website. So it's a different thing I'm storing. And then what I'm going to store is the website I want them to go to. So I've got some websites over here. So this is to learn how to draw on an iPad. So there we go. So there's a website that will take them to learn how to draw. And then in the case where the x velocity is less than 0, I want to go to a website that asks them to donate some money. And let's just say, why not have them donate to Technovation? So I've stored this information. Now I want to go to control, and I'm going to say open another screen, and I'm going to say with start value. So this is a different way of passing information. So I'm going to say go to the screen, and I called it challenge screen. So the screen is challenge screen. I'm just going to say my start value is yes. I'm not sure I'm going to need this. I think I've got enough information in tinyDB, but just if we wanted to do something different depending whether they said yes or no, let's set that. So let's duplicate that, and we're going to do the same thing. We'll open the challenge screen, but we want to pass it a no. Okay, so I think what we now can do is go to the challenge screen, and what we can do is say the same thing. When this is initialized, so when this screen opens, we want to, and this is where if they said yes, we want to say, yay, good job. Or we're going to say, oh, maybe try again tomorrow. In the meantime, think about donating to this great cause. So let's go to if. And in this case, I'm going to use an if then else. So it's either going to be yes or no. So I'm going to say, and I'm going to go to logic, and I'm going to test if equal. And remember, we passed the start value, right? So we said open the screen with this start value. So under control, I can say if get start value, is it equal to yes? So if it's yes, I'm going to say change the label. Now in this case, I've only got the one label, so I haven't renamed it. But I'm going to say set this label text to, and I'm going to make this kind of a long thing, and I'm going to insert the number of challenges they've accepted. So I'm going to say, so what should we say? Something like, yay for you. You've now accepted. And what we want to do is tell them how many they've accepted. Now we stored this in tinyDB, right? And that means that I needed tinyDB here. So I'm going to go back to my designer and storage and drag in a tinyDB for this screen. And I'm going to say, in this case, I'm going to get the value. And I'm going to use the backpack to make sure I've got my names right. So I want to grab my tags, and I'm putting them in the backpack just so the other screen has the right names. So I've got motivation website. So once you put something in the backpack, it's there as blocks you can drag from one screen to another, or even between projects. But so I just want to make sure I've got the spelling right. So I'm going to go back to the challenge screen, and let's say I want to put in the number of points, right? So I'm going to, let's put 0. Maybe this is the first time and they say no, right? So if they haven't done anything, we'll say no. And then we want to finish off the sentence. So the join allows me to join a bunch of strings together. Way to go, right? So we'll say something like that. And then what we want to do is we want to go to that website. So under web viewer, we're going to set the home URL. So that's just like setting the address of the website. And that one, we want that to be, again, from our tinyDB. And this one we called the motivation website. We saved it in tinyDB. Let's just make that the default, the one that we had, the drawing website. And then we say go home, which says go to that website. We've set the website by setting the home URL, and then we say go home, and it should load that website in the window. Okay, so now in the other case, we want to change the message, we want to change the URL. So let's copy these. I'm probably just going to say something like, too bad for today. You should try again tomorrow. Donate some money to this great cause. And then let's set the home URL to the same thing, right? Because back on screen 1, we set the motivation website to go to Technovation. So we've got that in either case. So let's go back. Oh, and I have to do go home again. So now what I want to do is let's go back to screen 1, and I'm going to try it on my phone. So here's my picture, my challenge for the day. So if I go right, yay for you, you've accepted 1 challenge so far, way to go. And I've got my drawing website. Okay, now I'm going to go back. So now that I've done the right, let's try going left. So I'm going to swipe left, and it says, too bad for today, you should try again. In the meantime, you could donate money to this cause. And there we go, Technovation showed up. Okay, so that's the general idea, and we've got that part working. So we could say, yay, okay, yay for us. We've got the general idea working, but then what would be the next thing we'd probably want to do? So the other thing that we might want to do is let's add a few more challenges. So right now I've got it hard-coded to just always say learn to draw, but let's make it so it's a little more interesting with a few more challenges. So what I'm going to do is add another variable, and I'm going to call it challenges, and I'm going to make a list. Let's just do 3. So what I'm going to do is let's put in learn to draw as 1. Let's say try to be tech free for an hour, and let's do, you know, learn to code a mobile app. So we've got 3 challenges, and I need 3 pictures to go with them, right? So what I want to do is let's make a second list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to call this challenge websites. So for drawing, I want to go here, and then learning to code a mobile app, which we know is App Inventor. All right, so we'll say those are 3. And now my third one, so I'm just going to move this down here, is going to be my challenge pictures. And again, we're going to do our list, and it will have 3 items. And for all 3 of these, what we're calling these parallel lists, and the idea is that we just want to make sure that we get them in the right order so that the websites and the pictures go with the challenge. Okay, so we've got 3 pictures, we've got 3 challenges, and we've got 3 websites. So now let's look at our initialize thing, because that's where we set up everything. So instead of saying learn to draw, let's randomly pick something from our list. So under lists, I can say pick a random item, and the list that we want it to pick from is challenges. So I'm going to say from challenges. And now what I'm thinking about, this isn't going to work, because if I say pick a random item from my pictures, it might pick a different random number. So let's first pick a random number from 1 to 3, and then let's get that index into our 3 different things. So I'm going to do, let's call this challenge number. I'm going to put it at 1, just because in lists you start off at 1 and then go up, right? So let's say here I'm going to first say set my challenge number, and I'm going to, from math, say a random number from 1 to, in this case, 3, right? Now, instead of picking a random number, I've got my random number, so it's going to be 1, 2, or 3, and then I want to get that number item from each of my 3 lists. So now I'll say, instead, I'll say select list item from challenges is my list, and my challenge number is the index. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing for my picture. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to grab that from pictures, and then my value to store is going to be the same thing. We want to get the whatever number website that goes with it. So let's say from challenge websites the number that we picked. Let's just see if we can get a random number here. So I'm going to just refresh. It went to a different one. Let's try to go right. So I'm going to, with my phone, I'm going right, and yay for you. And it's increased my challenges, and then it gives me a little information about, going tech free. So now let me go left and say what it says. So I think we've got quite a good starting point for a motivation app.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for being so attentive and asking good questions and making good suggestions.